Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Williams, and I'm delighted to host a fireside chat with the Pueblo Economic Development Corporation in Colorado. This is the second one of these we've done. I know the first one was tremendously successful, and our goal is to bring forth some information that will be useful to site selectors or companies that are interested in site selection. This particular project is about a decommissioning of a chemical manufacturing or storage facility in Pueblo. And frankly, from my perspective, it relates to one of the biggest potential labor source opportunities I've seen in the country. And we want to talk about that. In terms of my background, if I don't know you, I'd love to get to know you. I've been in the site selection business for about 35 years, about 10 of it on the government side and about 25 in the private side, helping companies get located. So this particular opportunity, we find in site selection now that there's a labor issue of a shortage of labor, whether it's related to lower participation rates or people leaving the workforce. It's just a real issue in site selection. And in Pueblo right now, we have this opportunity we want to talk about. We've got a distinguished panel here, and I'm going to introduce those on the panel here now. We want to talk about this opportunity, the timing of it, the skill sets of the people that are coming, and I'm just going to give you the hint. It's about 1,000 people, highly skilled workers that are going to be released into the workforce in Pueblo in the next year or so. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panel and ask them some questions. We're going to have some dialogue back and forth. We would love for you to enter questions in the chat room. We'll pick as many of those as we can up based on the time that we have left, and we'll go from there. So let me introduce the panel. The first gentleman with us is Todd Ailes. He's the project manager for the Bechtel Pueblo team, and Bechtel is one of is the prime contractor in the decommissioning of this chemical storage facility in Pueblo, and he's Todd is manager of that team. His group is under the contract to the Department of Defense to destroy these munitions that have been stored through decades. Before joining this group in 2021, Todd was a site manager for another facility in Texas. He spent 12 years in the U.S. Navy's nuclear propulsion program. He's got a 35-year career in the nuclear industry, a bunch of nice degrees in nuclear technologies, and a human resource background. So Todd's perspective is going to be the Bechtel perspective, which, as I understand it, he can explain more, is the contractor who's leading this effort for the decommissioning and ultimately going to result in the release of these fine employees into the workforce. Many of you probably have met the next panelist, Jeff Shaw. Jeff is president and CEO of PEDCO, the Pueblo Economic Development Corporation. Gosh, Jeff's been there since 1998. He served as chairman of the board in the past in 2008. And he's happens to be a lawyer as well. And Jeff is really driving this process because of this unique opportunity. And he's going to be talking to us today about how he sees this release of employees and also where companies that might be attracted to Pueblo might land in terms of sites and buildings and other assets that the Pueblo community has. Also today we have with us Kevin Parrent. He's plant manager of Entegris. He is running a facility, a chemical facility related to etching and other materials for the semiconductor business. And really important part of his add to our session today is his firm is operating in Pueblo now in the chemical industry, and he can relate to what this release of employees might mean to him and his team, and what it might mean to others coming in. Last but not least, Dana Dorr, he's a human resource manager for Amentum. Amentum, as I understand it, is a subcontractor to Bechtel in this downsizing effort, but they have about, as Dana can add more, about 900 employees at the facility. And Dana's job, and he's had many similar assignments, is to help employees being released to assimilate, get trained, move on to other positions. And he's done this at a number of other facilities in New Mexico, South Carolina, and Colorado. So in essence, we have a big opportunity coming up. We've got a distinguished panel that's going to tell you some of the ins and outs about it. And hopefully it's a highlight for attraction of new companies potentially coming to Pueblo. So with that, I want to start with Todd. Todd, could you just give us a brief history of Bechtel's, when we call this Puebloplex, this facility? What is this? How long has it been there? Just paint the picture for us, including, I think, about the 2004, this downsizing started. I think it's going to culminate in 2023. Just tell us about this a little bit, please. And I think we may have some slides for you.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to. So first off, thanks for inviting me on the panel. Again, a little history on the project. We call it the Pueblo Chemical Agent Destruction Pilot Plant, what we refer to as PCAPP. It is located on the Pueblo Chemical Depot for the Army. It started 18 years ago, in the concept in 2004. There's 2 sites remaining in the U.S. That are destroying chemical munitions, with their overall goal of achieving total destruction of the final chemical munitions in the U.S. By September of 2023. So in 2004, the process started. Again, a partnership that a Bechtel-led team with Amentum and Bechtel, working to actually design the facility, fully construct it, and then move into the operations phase to start the destruction of the chemical munitions. And that's currently the phase we're in. We've destroyed over 90% of the agent that was here in the Pueblo area, and we have another 10% to go. And that our goal is to have that all completed here by September of next year. So a large mix of personnel here. We run the operation 24/7. So we have a very dedicated workforce. A lot of them, if you think about 18 years, they came from the Colorado area, the Pueblo area. And, when I do all hands and discuss, hey, this is it for this site. That's our goal, get this destroyed, and then safely move into the closure phase of the project, which is actually turn the facility over and then finally take it all back down and turn the land over to Pueblo-plex, potentially in the future, or the Army, and then back to the state of Colorado. So we have a lot of, when I do that, all hands, there's many of the folks that still want to stay in Pueblo and the community. They've been out here supporting this mission, and they're looking forward to finding that next adventure for them here in the Pueblo community.
Awesome, awesome. Dana, you've been in the HR field for decades. You're working with Amentum, as I understand, as a major subcontractor to Todd's group in this project. And I think you told me earlier in our session, maybe you have about 900 people there in your particular workforce. Tell us about these people, if you could, maybe the 900, and maybe we can go back to Todd if we want to talk to Bechtel's about Bechtel's piece. But I'm really interested in the general characteristics of these people. What kind of occupations do they have, et cetera? Just start to tell us about these people that are going to be released, because those of our listeners, whether they're in the site selection community like us or other companies, they want to know what these people can do for them.
Sure. So one of the primary classifications we have are the ordnance technicians. They are the people who actually handle the munitions. They operate the equipment that destroys the munitions, that the whole destruction process. They're the handlers. They're highly trained in what we call conduct of operations philosophy, which is a real intense focus on how do you work in a safe manner to protect yourself, but also to protect the environment, to protect the facility. And so that's something they get trained on right away before they start working. And there's constant refresher training. So they're a workforce that is part of their DNA is to work in that type of a focused manner. And then we have other people who go into the areas when necessary in very, very significant personal protective gear, PPE, supplied air type things, and do maintenance or cleanup. So we have people, another layer of folks who are very skilled in working in a chemical atmosphere, I could say, that are of value to the chemical industry. And then, like every other manufacturing, heavy manufacturing facility, we don't really manufacture, but similar to that, you've got all the plant support type positions. You've got significant maintenance folks, facilities operations people, health and safety, a very strong health and safety cadre. We have control room operators. So we have people that it's in a control room, we call it. They monitor operations via television screen and cameras in the areas where we actually do the work. They observe the workers to ensure they're going to work safely. If they might identify a risk that the workers in the controlled area aren't identifying as they're working, and so that's their job. We also have people who control out of control rooms all the HVAC, facility infrastructure. So it's got a workforce to me that's very transferable to any heavy manufacturing or heavy processing type environment, with the added benefit of our operators who really are trained and focused on working with hazardous chemicals in a highly methodical and safety oriented manner.
Dana, there's a graph that's up on the screen now. Tell us a little bit about the timeline for all this, because I think it's imminent, right? I think we're moving into the final year of this. Well,
there's a few years on it. The 2023 will be our first reduction of people. You'll see on that graph, and we're targeting right around the early spring or summer of 23 to let the first release go of roughly a couple hundred people across all the companies. And then, as you see over time, we continue to ramp down year by year until we are essentially closed with the current operations in fall of 2025.
So between all of the Bechtel's team and yours, and I think Bechtel is in there, what is the total release going to be from now until the end?
Right now, if this chart shows that by March of 23, we may be up to a little over 1,700 people. We're not at that number right now. We're at 1,550 roughly. So if things all stayed the same today, we would be letting go 1,550 people over the course of time here, the very short period of time.
That's a real particular opportunity. Tell us a little, give us a couple of demographic descriptions. I mean, what's the average age of these people, gender, just a couple of things. Age is particularly important to me.
Sure, yeah, average age is 41 years old. Gender breakdown, is, let's see, we're right around 200 people that are female.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you surveyed the employee, or Todd chime in? Have you surveyed the employees about their desire to stay in this community if they can? I mean, if it's 1,500 people, you know, I wonder how many want to stay, want to work for others that are already in the community or might be coming to the community through new attraction.
We have surveyed our employees, and again, we're dealing with high hazard operations. You have a very highly trained workforce, very dedicated workforce that they have to meet certain requirements, even report to work, and they report 24/7 if it's snowing outside or not, to keep the operations moving forward. But there's a good 65% or more that would prefer to stay here local in the Pueblo area.
Yeah, I can, you know, back Todd up. We've done 3 surveys over time and a series of focus groups that indicate what Todd's talking about. And in terms of the reliability of our employees, they have to go through a much more rigorous background check than the normal employer does. It's similar to what the background check you get is a secret clearance in the DoD or a Q clearance on the Department of Energy. They don't actually get issued that clearance, but they get that level of scrutiny to be able to come to work for us.
You know, it's interesting. In my career, probably about 12 years ago, we did a site search for a major, I'll call it, transportation company, and we ended up targeting a military facility similar to this that was being downsized. And so fast forward 12 years after the location, the skill sets and longevity and loyalty that our client was able to derive from that downsizing makes it one of the most competitive locations they have in the world. Given all the challenges in the site selection industry and finding labor force, this is really pretty interesting. Jeff, man, this is your backyard. This is a huge opportunity. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us how you see this opportunity. I've got so many questions for you about product and this and that, but just get us started about your sense of this and what this means for your efforts.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, the efforts of the Bechtel project, the PCAPP project, has been a great economic impact to the community. Normally, I would say in previous markets, you'd be very fearful of this kind of workforce coming out, and rarely do you get this kind of notice. But as you pointed out, there's such a workforce challenge nationally. It's probably the biggest opportunity we've seen to help alleviate or relieve some of the concerns that those manufacturers are having, which is obviously the workforce side. You know, rarely, and I can imagine in my past, and I can't imagine a time as I think back where you've had this kind of workforce becoming available that's highly trained, that has the ability to reskill or retool as needed. Translates into a wide number of potential industries. So we see it as a tremendous opportunity for the community, and we're looking forward to what this is going to set off. But I think this is kind of one of those moments that it's a pivotal time in Pueblo, depending on the projects we're being able to bring into it. But this kind of sets that stage, and it's a turning point in the community. So we see it as a high value and extremely important for the community.
You know what I like about it? It's not some big closure where it's all of a sudden. This is a very controlled release for absorption, which is pretty interesting. Jeff, and maybe Todd and Dana can chip in here, but I'm wondering what programs or infrastructure there is to integrate these employees into maybe prospects that you're bringing to the table. I mean, how do you see that? I'm wondering how these employees get interviewed. How does that marriage occur conceptually? Is there a system set up? Are you contemplating a system? How does that work? And I guess for Todd, sorry to interrupt, but for Todd and Dana, what access would an employer have to interview these employees if Jeff had somebody looking?
We do facilitate direct contact with, our partner employer, let's say, in terms of making it easy for them to have, we call them reverse job fairs, where we connect them directly with our employees, and it can be, I won't get into the weeds, it can be done many different ways, but we do facilitate that to make it easy for them to have connection with our people. In line with that also, over the years at different locations, we have created advanced training programs with those partner companies to facilitate our employees sliding right into their positions. An example I will give is, it goes back many years, but it was at the Rocky Flats site, which was Department of Energy location, where we made parts for nuclear weapons. So what we found as we were closing that facility, in terms of we didn't need to continue to make weapons parts anymore, and we had plutonium operators and chemical operators whose jobs were to work very intensively with radioactive material, and they made a lot of money because, as you can imagine, they were highly trained. Well, on day, X day, they were going to no longer be machining plutonium, and they weren't going to be able to duplicate their employment wages outside the company anywhere in Denver. But at the same time, we connected with the companies coming in to tear the place down, clean it up. At that time, this many years ago, the whole environmental regulation structure was really getting intense. A severe shortage of environmental technicians. We partnered with that company to create a environmental technician training program with the local community college up there in Westminster, through which employees participated in that program outside of their work hours. Long story short, one day at the end of their mission as a plutonium or chemical operator, we let them go, and within the next week they started their new jobs as environmental techs. And so that's the kind of the bases loaded home run that I'm always looking for. And those don't occur every time, but that's really the dream that we try to pursue.
So if I can, our commitments to the employees here, right? We want to make sure that we give them opportunities that are out there, but we also, this community's been supporting PCAPP for the past 18 years, and we want to continue supporting those employees and the community and find them homes. So we have been working with local community leaders, sharing, hey, here's our D-staff plan. Here's potential opportunities of the workforce, and looking at what skill sets the local community needs. So if there's a company that wants to come in that has a certain skill set, we could work that with the local universities and colleges and establish something and work to get those folks trained on those skill sets prior to the D-staff.
Awesome. Kevin, you're the guy that's there. Maybe you're going to use some of these employees, but you definitely have the mindset, I think, or should or will, of others that Jeff may be attracting to Pueblo. So tell us a little bit about your operation and what all this means to you, because you're right there. You're an employer.
Yeah, so within the Pueblo community, right now, there's really two major chemical manufacturers, and there's a third smaller one, but this will be a lot of talent that's getting released out in the community. We're certainly hoping to be able to take some of them, but we're a medium-sized employer and we won't be able to take 1,000 people. That's just the reality of the situation. Right. But I've had the opportunity to tour the facility with Dana, and I've seen the high skill levels, and they would be able to plug right into any chemical manufacturer in terms of the skill sets they have and in terms of learning the processes of a company. Very high attention to detail, very high safety level, those kind of things. And then in terms of the community, Pueblo's been a great place for us to operate. We've had very stable employees here, where with a great operating environment, both regulatory wise, but also with support from people like Jeff and PEDCO to continue to find allies and partners in the community to help us operate our business too.
I'm interested, Kevin, were you one of Jeff's attraction clients at one point? Did you go through the process of that when you located in Pueblo?
Yes, I wasn't with the company at that time, but the original plant build in 1998 was part of a PEDCO program. Right.
And Jeff, I know you have obviously, based on Kevin's comments, a chemical presence. I know you have, Jeff, a steel presence. My sense of it is you're very welcoming to heavier process oriented businesses. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we've been a manufacturing community for, over 100 some odd years. We were a steel town ages ago. So, as we talk about training and workforce, we were retooling and reskilling workforce before it was kind of the trendy thing to do coming out of the 70s and 80s. But we still believe in heavy manufacturing, and we're still we'll chase those for, I say not just foreseeable future. We're excited about it. That's the workforce that we embrace. That's who the community is, and that's the direction we're going to continue to go.
Tell us about rail. Tell us about infrastructure. Come in from 30,000 feet, and then let's focus on. Okay, if somebody were to watch our fireside chat and get all warmed up about this, and they called you next week, what would you tell them? What is the opportunity for them in terms of dirt or facility?
Yeah, so we're a little bit unique that we typically control our own site. So we control the industrial parks as well as the ground. We have funding to build facilities, to build spec facilities. We have one spec facility done. We're in the process of building another 70 to 75,000 square foot spec facility at the airport industrial park. But we also have the ability to do infrastructure work. And so part of that is also a heavy rail. So we've created heavy rail parks, which is on the map. And you see, which is about a 350 to 400 acre heavy rail site that has city lead tracks and coming into it as well. We have the ability to acquire sites if we need to. We're funded to, so we have the ability to do that. We have the transportation with the rail that goes north, south, east, west, served by both UP and Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, plus I-25 and Highway 50. And one of the things that really separates us from everybody else and a lot of communities, especially in Colorado, is availability of water. So when we look at chemical manufacturing and some of the other clusters that we go after, one of the separating factors is water. We can handle a heavy water project where a lot of communities cannot. And I say heavy water, somewhere between 2 to 4 million gallons a day is certainly within our wheelhouse.
It's interesting to me with heavy projects now that we're involved in the chemical, we being my company, and locating steel mills, chemical businesses, and this renewable energy option for at least part of a load is really important. So what options are there? What experiences have you had in Pueblo with putting a little bit of green energy into a location mix?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to the north on that site, you see like a field, a solar panel field. So one of our last projects, most recently, last couple of years, was an expansion of our steel industry, our steel plant that makes it's a long rail expansion. And so what they ended up doing is, to our knowledge, it's the only steel mill that's predominantly powered by solar energy. And so they put in a 350 megawatt solar field to feed and power the solar site, power the steel mill. There's more solar out there as well, but there's we have experience on how to handle now heavy manufacturing, which traditionally, it didn't seem like that was possible, but with a company like the steel mill that manufactures the product in Pueblo and has 300 to 400 megawatt type loads, it proved out that you can get a competitive price, a very stable price using the renewable energy associated with it. So, if they can handle on such a big project, we can certainly put that in play on smaller projects or equivalent projects of that size in the future as well.
Interesting. In addition to your rail serve sites now, is there I'm going to say a phase 2 or a phase 3 in the future in terms of development of, I'm going to say larger sites, bigger than 100 acres. Is there continued growth potential in Pueblo? You may not control the land yet, but just what's the general landscape?
Yeah, for the heavy rail side, we just on the map that we have where it's identified in red on the rail park, just to the left of that portion, you'll see the oval loops. That's actually CS Wind, the manufacturers. Used to be Vestas manufactures the wind towers. Just the north of that is 600 acres that we have plans to expand the rail park, at least the heavy rail down on that site. So we're going to go another 600 acres. Into the south, which is to the bottom of the page on the green, there's another 450 to 500 acres just immediately on the bottom of that page. So we plan to expand the rail down there. So our plans to move forward are to increase our rail capacity to somewhere around an additional 800 to 1,000 acres.
Wow, that's spectacular. And it looks relatively flat, correct?
It definitely is flat, yes.
Definitely is flat. Todd, the existing facility, maybe it's going to be tied up for a while, or maybe speak to the existing facility. Some may wonder, is that ever going to be available? Is there anything you can say about that?
So what I can say is, our job is to clean it up. Know that there's a Pueblo, what's called Puebloplex, is working with the DoD and language to potentially try to acquire that section from the Pueblo Chemical Depot. In the end, the entire Pueblo Chemical Depot, the plan is to turn that back over to the state. Of course, a lot of things have to be agreed upon between those, but there will be certain aspects of that facility that will be available. We will. Our job is to clean it up and potentially be reused in the future for some future need.
I see one or two questions in the chat room, and Caroline, I don't know if you can help us access them. Maybe our team can talk about them, answer them. That might stimulate even more additional thought.
Well, one question that was had was just who do I get a hold of to discuss further? So
well, that's a really good question.
I love that question. I appreciate that.
I like that question.
Yeah, I'd say reach out to PEDCO to start off with, and we'll have our contact information out there. My cell phone's the best way to reach out to me at any given time. I put that out there right now, which is the 719-252-0935. That's my cell phone. Reach out to us and we'll get you in contact with everybody on the call. They've been working with us on other prospects in the past. They've been very open and honest about the project. So we would love to have that conversation.
Jeff, how else have you been promoting this?
Well, we're trying to get it out more publicly. Part of it is timing it. We're trying to be careful on it because, as mentioned, we want to make sure that we don't do anything that hurts the PCAPP project because they have to finish their mission. So we're trying to time it out. And so with in our marketing efforts, as we reach out to our core clusters that we're chasing after, whether it's the chemical manufacturing, aerospace and defense, food and beverage, or whoever it would be, we're sharing this information now with them, letting them know the timeline. So when they have a new project coming in, the build out times out very well with the workforce that's now being released, now that we kind of have that set time frame. So now our marketing efforts are ramping up. Now we know what the timeline looks like and the end date.
Awesome. Yeah, I can understand how we have to finish the mission, right? You've got this decline in employment, but you don't know what's going to happen. So you have to have some flexibility, Todd, I'm sure. And Dana,
yeah,
sure.
That's one of our biggest concerns. So we're reaching out to companies, and that's our discussions with them. We're being open with them. We don't want them coming, hey, purging everybody right away, but we do want to find homes for folks. And we have incentives for our folks too, to stay. And we think that it's good for that, hey, we have some financial incentives for them to stay, but we want to find them that home after.
And don't say anything you shouldn't, but you just mentioned you were reaching out to some companies. I'm wondering what the market may be telling you in terms of who you're reaching out to, or maybe who's reaching out to you as to, I don't know, general sectors, or, how is selfishly the site location market, knowing you've got your mission and you need to manage that. But what kind of companies do you, and I heard what Jeff said about chemical and aerospace, et cetera. What, you have any thoughts on best targets and what you've heard from the market?
Well, I mean, again, you're talking a highly skilled workforce. So we presented our D-staff plan to the industrial park and all the businesses here local in the Pueblo community, and made sure that they knew if they're looking to expand, we have some folks that will be downsizing and looking for opportunities in the future. Again, being in the DoD, in part in the past of the DOE, there are DOE facilities, but they would have to relocate to another state. And there's as stated before, the majority wants to stay here local. So we're looking to any industry that wants to come in that supports it. If it's chemical, they have that. They have high hazards, but we have a multiple, as Dana stated before, we have multiple disciplines. I mean, we're pretty much our own little city out there, right? So we have,
right,
we have all the normal procurements, everything, right? The tire company would need. I think there's a lot of opportunities for many different type of companies to come in.
Jeff, I had a couple of more things I wanted to ask you. I assume you all have a plan for how you're going to address this opportunity to some extent. Your board's involved, the community's involved, they're aware. I assume that's out there for you.
Yeah, so actually timing is interesting. So we actually, as we look at budgeting process and we're approving our plans for next year, which was actually yesterday, our board meeting. And so right now our plan is to both take the show on the road, as well as potentially make the offer to bring in site selectors to take a look at the sites, take a look and come out and interview, meet with the PCAPP folks, take a look at the community, kind of the familiarization type tour. So we're going to throw that out there for offers for people. And then we're actually going to take the show on the road and try to explain this to as many site selectors as we possibly can get to and have them and hear what this information is. We like to have them on site just because I think they'll be able to see part of the reason. And I guess, every community's, somewhat selfish and obviously proud of their community, but when Todd and Dana talk about their workforce wanting to stay here, there's obviously a reason why they want to stay here. And we've got tremendous incentives available, more incentives than anybody else in the state of Colorado from a cash perspective. However, the quality of life issue is an important factor to it, and the cost of living and the cost of manufacturing in Pueblo. I always tell people, and this is one of those days you can ski on Saturday and play golf on Sunday. And so you're going to be able to do that now. And so the quality of life is here with the outdoor recreation. So our plan is on both sides, taking the show out there on the road, as well as making the offer to people to bring them in, tour in the facility, take a look at the community and get a feel for what their workforce or the companies they're representing, what they would see in the community, as well as reach out to people like Kevin and other manufacturers to really hear from them about what manufacturing is like in the Pueblo.
Let me ask Kevin, any additional thoughts from you? You're going to be there the longest. You're there forever. What any additional thoughts on all this for you?
Yeah, one of the other things that we haven't really talked about yet in terms of where Pueblo is strong is particularly if you have a customer base in the western part of the United States. Logistically, Pueblo is in a very good location. You're in the I-25 corridor for the north-south, easy access to I-70 and US 50, and I-10 is not particularly difficult to get to as well. So in addition to the water and the electricity advantages Jeff was talking about earlier, logistics are also strong. In terms of the electricity, one of the things I can say as a manufacturer, I believe in our 20 years, we've never had an outage of more than a couple hours, which is pretty incredible from an electricity reliability standpoint, and is a big deal for any kind of a manufacturer coming in.
So you found your electric utilities to be responsive and healthy, all your utilities, you got great rail.
Yes.
Is it the UP or BNSF that's adjacent to you?
So going north around from the I-25 corridor, going north-south, there's two parallel lines, UP and BNSF, and they have joint trackage agreements. And then going out east is going to be, I believe, the BNSF line, going out further out. And what we didn't talk about in conjunction with that, there's also, the rail side is important to us from a number of reasons, for rail manufacturing, logistic purposes, but also for rail testing. There's another site, Todd mentioned the reuse authority, which is the Pueblo-plex. It has, 35 miles of rail attached to that. So as that comes offline, eventually there's going to be opportunities out there. And then also in Pueblo County, there's the Federal Department of Transportation rail testing site. Is now a surface transportation site that has significant rail coming into. That's operated by the Federal Rail Administration. So rail is a big deal for the community.
Jeff, do you know, are there dual serve rail siting opportunities, or do you know?
Yes. So our large industrial park, the one that we highlighted on the previous map, the 350 acres, roughly 400, that's dual served.
Wow.
So we have both
Spectacular.
Yeah. So the two lines, you can't really see them coming in. There's two parallel main lines, and then there's two switches that come into the rail park, one on the top and one on the bottom. And then the city has municipal rail already into that site. And both BNSF and UP have reciprocal track agreements and rights to that park. So it's a dual serve site.
That's a great feature. That's awesome. Todd, what other thoughts? What did we miss that you think's important? You're at the center of the show down there. What have we missed that you think would be important from, I guess, your operational perspective, or from the perspective of how do we get your employees best settled when the time is right in a new venture?
Just the support that we have from the community. So any company coming in, PEDCO and the local community are fully supportive of these opportunities. I do think our employees themselves are just looking for comparable wages. They understand they're dealing with high hazards. They might be being paid at a higher premium right now and might have to take a slight cut, but they would do that in order to maintain them staying with their families in the local community. It's a great community to raise a family and to opportunities to have work here and support. So I think that's what our folks look for. They want to just have those opportunities out there. I know the markets that are out there. One of the toughest things right now is finding good qualified workers and employees. And we're going to have that opportunity for anybody that wants to come out and start business here in Pueblo.
Well, I have to tell you, from my perspective, I'm just listening to all of you talk about your employment plan, Jeff's assets. I have to say, I've been in this business for 30 years. I don't think I've ever seen a labor opportunity this rich for, new companies or existing companies in the area. And to have that augmented by dual serve rail, heavy electricity, other utilities, ready sites, I really think there's something special here. So, Jeff, I think we're going to close out. Anything you want to say here to cap things off?
No, it's hard to top, kind of what Todd and Dana talked about. What we always tell people, I'm from Pueblo and I'm a generational guy, so it's easy to talk about the great things that happen in Pueblo. But when you have folks that are not from Pueblo to come in and tell just how amazing this community is, quality of life's an important part of it. And I think they did a great job explaining it to it. We have all the assets and all the tools at our tool belt that any community could need or want. And I forgot to mention our 300 days of sunshine, right? So we don't get a lot of snow down here. We're in Colorado, but we don't get a whole lot of snow. We save that for our northern friends up north. So
okay. Good deal. Good deal.
We just appreciate everybody's time.
Appreciate everybody's time. Todd, Dana, Kevin, and Jeff, of course, very, very helpful. And if anybody has any questions, again, Jeff's cell or LinkedIn or his office. And again, thank you. I'm Mark Williams. This has been enlightening. Jeff, I have a conference call with a chemical client in an hour. You know what I'm going to be talking to him about. I think there's something going on here. So that'd be great. All right, let me say goodbye again, Mark Williams. Thanks for joining the PEDCO Fireside Chat related to this downsizing and this opportunity. And everybody have a wonderful weekend and be safe. Take care.